Hello, everybody. It is Andrea Radke with Lion Dog African Safaris, doing our live session here today. It is just before 2 o'clock, so we have a few minutes to wait until maybe some people tune in, or I just don't want to miss anybody. So I'll just chat a little bit here before it's 2 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock I'll start talking about some of my things that we were going to discuss today. So, a couple more minutes before we get started. Just shortly here, after this video or the live stream is done, there will be a recording on the Facebook page for Lion Dog African Safari, so you can re-watch it if you can't stick to the end. We have about half an hour today. If there's more questions or if there are any questions that lead us past the half hour, then of course I'll stay. If there are comments or questions online, I will address them either at the time, or if there's something more complicated or take a little bit more time, then I will send a direct message to the person asking the questions. But I will answer each and every question to the best of my ability. So don't be shy. Let me know what's on your mind, and I will address it. Okay, so it is pretty much 2 o'clock again. My name is Andrea Radke. I am the owner and operator of Lion Dog African Safaris. We are a niche tour operator specializing in tours just to Africa. So we cover quite a few areas in Africa. Most people go to Africa for game safaris, but there's a lot of other things to do. And I try to give you as much information as I could in some videos that I recorded in the past 6 weeks. Those videos are available on the YouTube channel, Lion Dog African Safari, so you can look it up. I try to make things that kind of go smoothly together. So for instance, safari logistics is one video, game safaris is another video, Rwanda, Uganda for visiting the gorillas is a third video. Then we talked about some activities in Africa, and then also I introduced a few more jewels of Africa. That's what I called it at the time. So today we're answering a few questions, and I kind of put something together from experience, because I've been holding these presentations for a few years now across Canada and North America to people that are interested in going to Africa. And often there are questions at the end of the presentation that I will address right now. But if you have anything else, if there's anything else that is on your mind or you would like to know, just let me know. Write it in the comments or send me an email. The email address is info@liondogafricansafaris.com. So what I want to start today, so one of the questions that I will answer, or what I want to talk about, is visas in Africa, because some people cover a few countries, so they don't just go to visit one single country. They travel from country to country, and a lot of African countries require an entry visa. Those visas can be applied for ahead of time for some of the countries. And those countries that do require that, I will cover those visas for you. That means I will apply for them, and you will receive a visa acceptance letter from me in your email that states, gives you a visa number and information, etc. And then you'll just have that paper in your hand, and you will receive your visa in your passport upon entry into the country. So it is a bit of a process. That's why I offer that service to clients of Lion Dog African Safaris. And the countries that we pretty much all the time do visas for are Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania in East Africa. There is also some countries in Southern Africa that require visas. However, those visas are better procured when you enter into the country. There's sometimes a few differences between different visas. For instance, in Zambia, if you stay just in Zambia, you only need a single entry visa. If you visit the falls in Zambia and in Zimbabwe, you would need the so-called CASA visa that allows you entry into both countries and return into both countries. So you could stay in Zambia my clients stay in Zambia. Then you could go over to Zimbabwe, visit the falls on that side, and then with the same visa, you could return into Zambia in the evening to go back to your venue and stay in Zambia. So you wouldn't need an extra visa. The cost for this visa is the same as for your multiple entry visa in Zambia. So it makes a lot of sense to get the CASA visa. A lot of people, and I covered that in the Victoria Falls section, are also doing the Chobe Day tour. That means they're leaving Zambia, traveling to Botswana, coming back to Zambia the same day to stay overnight at their venue. And that visa, the CASA visa, also allows you to come back from Botswana into Zambia. You're not allowed to stay overnight in Botswana on that particular visa, but you can leave the country and come back in. Botswana also requires a visa, but that is easily done and it doesn't cost any money. So you just get a stamp in your passport and you're good to go. Visas usually cost about between $30 and $50, sometimes $100 in certain countries. Yeah, so that is all covered with the with your tour if you book with me. So I'll process the visas that can be processed ahead of time. Another visa we don't typically process ahead of time is your visa to Egypt, and that costs, I believe, between like the costs are changing sometimes also with the exchange rate, and it's typically around $30. What happens is the supplier in Egypt will meet you behind security and they will have all the paperwork ready because they receive all that information from me, including your arrival time and date, your flight number, etc., and also a copy of your passport, which I require from you when you book your trip to Africa. So they will have all that information. They will fill in all the documents and they will have it all ready. So you just have to show your passport and get a stamp, pay your visa fee, and then you're good to go. So really easy to do. The same procedure in Jordan if you visit Jordan with Lion Dog African Safaris. Botswana, like I mentioned before, doesn't require a pre-approval. Namibia doesn't require a pre-approval, and South Africa also does not require pre-approval. And at this time, there's also no visa fee in those countries. So you can just go there. You don't have to pay. You get a stamp in your passport and you're good to go. Remember that your passports will need at least 6 months of validity after your return from Africa. So means if you're coming back in April from Africa, for instance, your passport needs to be valid until the end of October. If you don't have those 6 months, there may be trouble. I've heard from people that they were questioned and it's typically about, are you going home or what are you doing here? Why is your passport gonna expire? If you have really good reasons, then they will likely let you into the country, but I wouldn't risk it. So make sure that your passport is valid for 6 months after your return back to North America. What else about visas? Yes, some people, and that is one of the questions I actually received beforehand. Some people are asking, can I do my visas myself? So if you want to travel to East Africa, for instance, is it possible to do your visas yourself? Yes, the short answer is yes, it's possible, especially for Uganda and Kenya as well. It is fairly easy to do. It is probably taking a little bit of time if you're not familiar with the process because you have to submit your documents online. They require a certain format. They cannot be bigger than a certain KB size. So you'll have to fizzle around with that a little bit, which takes a little bit of time. So it could end up being a bit frustrating. That's why I offer these services to you. But Uganda, for instance, is quite uncomplicated. So if you want to go to Uganda and get your visa upon arrival, it's fairly easy to do. Rwanda as well, especially for Americans, it's preferred that the Americans, so US Americans, go and cross the border into Rwanda on their own. It is easy to do online. Like I said, it's a little bit more complicated. Now, Tanzania is a different story. And the reason is that Tanzania has changed their visa entry process when you come into the country. And everybody, honestly, everybody is recommending to get your visa beforehand because it can take up to 3 hours for you to go through the process. it has to do with the new government. They're trying to get a handle on corruption and money disappearing. So what's happening right now is you stand in line to do your visa application. You get a form that you need to fill in. They will look through it. Then you get a piece of paper, and you have to stand in line again to go and pay for your visa in a different lineup. So you stand there again to get your visa processed, and then you have to come back, stand in line again to get your visa finally processed into your passport. So that can take up to 3 hours. And if you've ever dealt with African officials and African, government employees, it can be frustrating. So honestly, get your visa done for Tanzania beforehand so you have a good start to your trip. It's easy to go through. You don't have to stand in line. Usually it takes maybe 20-30 minutes to get through the line when you have your approval letter in hand. That's really quick. They take a picture, they take your fingerprints, and off you go. So it's pretty easy. It's even easier if you come through one of the guerrilla countries, Rwanda or Uganda, because you typically land in a rural area and go through immigrations there. It could be Mwanza or Musoma, which has really small immigration offices, and often it's small airplanes that land there, and typically it's only one airplane at a time, so you're only going to be a maximum of 12 people going through immigrations. So if you then have your approval letter already in your hand, and maybe everybody on the plane has their approval letter in their hand, because it is really promoted right now to get your visa done beforehand, you are in and out in no time and on your way to your safari destination. So honestly, it is the easiest to get your Tanzania visa beforehand. All the other ones I would be happy to discuss, and we see the pro and cons. And definitely is a possibility to do your visa on your own there, and I will help you through that process. The other question I want to discuss is vaccinations, and it is a little bit more complicated, but it is not really rocket science. It's not that bad. Right now, there is no mandatory vaccination to go to Africa, except Uganda. You have to have yellow fever vaccination for Uganda or an exemption certificate for Uganda, or you will not receive your visa. And they are checking that. Yellow fever regulations are changing every now and again, and they make it so that it kind of meets what is going on in the surrounding countries. Often those regulations are put in place to protect the country for yellow fever entering into the country. So for instance, Tanzania or Rwanda don't really have a yellow fever vaccination requirement right now. But if you have been in a yellow fever country before getting there, they will ask for a vaccination certificate or a vaccination exemption certificate. So it is a little bit of a two-sided sword. Sometimes, when you come directly from North America, there's not going to be a big question. Sometimes passports are not really going to be looked at that closely, but they do scan through your passport. And if there is a country that is on the list of yellow fever requirement, they will ask. They may also ask if there is no other country in your passport that requires yellow fever vaccination, and you need to know the rules. And typically when you go to Tanzania, I'll send you a web page that officially explains the rules for yellow fever vaccination, because I don't want you to be subject to questioning or even other situations that may be uncomfortable. So we'll talk about that a little bit closer when you go there. But in general, there is no yellow fever mandatory vaccination for Tanzania, and also not for Rwanda at this point in time. For Kenya, it is there to for people that stay in Kenya for more than, I believe it's 72 hours. So if you stay in Kenya for more than 72 hours, you will have to have a yellow fever vaccination certificate. The same for Ethiopia as well. So if you go into countries that are not broadly covered by us, we will look it up together and we will work through it, and I will help you figure it out. And then you'll know. So right now, the only country that mandatory, doesn't matter how long you stay, requires yellow fever vaccination is Uganda. be aware there is sometimes yellow fever vaccination or vaccine shortages, especially up here in Canada. So what sometimes happens, people receive the vaccination as a booster shot rather than the full inoculation, and the booster shot is only valid for a few months. I believe it's six months or 9 months at this time, so that will not cover you for the rest of your life. If you get the regular yellow fever vaccination, it is valid for life. It is not without cost. It is somewhat expensive, but once you've had it, you will be covered for life. You do not require a booster. You do not require any type of titer check or anything like that. Your vaccination will be valid for life, which is really cool. Like I, for instance, received my yellow fever vaccination in 1998, and even earlier, 1992, and it is still valid. And for a time, it was required to receive a booster after a certain number of years, which has been done. Like your yellow fever vaccination is now valid for life, even if you've received it a long time ago. Just have your certificate ready. For guests over 65, you can receive a yellow fever exemption certificate. So that means you will not, if you don't want to get the vaccine, you are not required to get the vaccine. You will get the exemption certificate, which will allow you to enter into Uganda also. And that has to do with side effects and, the way the vaccine works. The side effects may be more risky than getting yellow fever, etc. Because it's not, yellow fever is not that common, but if you get it, it can be quite drastic. So yeah, keep that in mind. People that cannot have any kind of vaccination, for instance, people that have any type of egg allergy, they are also exempt from the vaccination, and you will receive an exemption certificate. Yeah, so another vaccination that I recommend to talk to your travel what's it called, travel clinic with, is typhoid. Typhoid is a fairly common infection. It's a bacterial infection that can be prevented by taking a shot or taking some oral medication before you go on your trip. It's not mandatory, but the fact that it has to do with hygiene, with hand hygiene and hand washing, etc. You can get it from other people not following the rules, so not washing their hands properly or not washing their hands after going to the bathroom, and then preparing food or pouring you a drink or something like that. If other people do not follow hygiene protocol, you may get typhoid fever. It is easily treated once you've received it, but it takes a while. It takes a while for you to, first of all, know what it is. You will feel sick for a couple days. It's not going to get better. Your travel diarrhea medication is not helping, and you're feeling really miserable. So you've already wasted 2 days on your safari. Now somebody suggests, okay, it may be typhoid. So now you have to find your way to a hospital or a doctor, which is another day. Then they have to diagnose you. Then you have to start medication. And then it takes another 2 days or so until you finally feel better and you can actually enjoy your trip. So that's about 3, 4, maybe even 5 days that you did not enjoy your trip to the fullest, which could have easily been prevented by either getting the typhoid fever shot or taking some medication before you go. So, and honestly, I have seen somebody contracting typhoid fever on a trip, and that's exactly how it went. So even though it's easily treatable, you get some antibiotics and you're good to go afterwards. You're wasting time on your safari, days that you've paid for, days that you've been looking forward to, and could have been easily prevented. So I recommend talking to your travel clinic or your doctor about typhoid fever vaccination, or the regimen that you can take in pill form before you go. So that's one thing. Some people ask about rabies vaccination. And if you have not yet had your rabies vaccination, don't run off to get it. First of all, it's quite expensive. you need a few shots. I think it's at least 3 shots. I had to get them because I was working in the veterinary industry, so I had to get my rabies vaccination. It's not pleasant. It hurts quite a bit, and again, it's 3 shots in a fairly long time frame. So I think the first one was two months apart, and then the second one was 6 months apart. So you would have to start it fairly early, even before you're planning your trip to Africa. And it is not really necessary. If you can stick to the fact that you should not pet any wildlife in general, and you should not pet any domestic animals like any stray dogs or even owned dogs or cats, or catch any bats or something like that. Don't touch the wildlife, don't touch the domestic animals, and you should be good to go. So it's like, I don't think you really need it. Again, I am not a medical professional. You should ask your travel clinic about it. I don't really think, though, that if you stick to the rules and you don't touch the animals, you should be fine. Another another vaccination that's often suggested and that I don't think is necessarily required is cholera. Cholera is a disease that usually breaks out in rural settings and communities. It's caused by contaminated drinking water. You will get drinking water on safari. So your safari vehicle will have mineral water provided for you in the vehicle. And in the camps, you will also sometimes get mineral water provided, or it is there to purchase. So that kind of depends on what level venues you book on your safari. So a lot of the venues offer mineral water in the room. They offer it for drinking. They offer it for brushing your teeth. And you will have mineral water available in the truck on your safari. Drink that water. Don't drink the tap water. And it will be mentioned to you multiple times on safari. That's how you prevent most of the diseases. So don't drink the tap water. Stick to the bottled water. People sometimes ask if they should bring their own bottle along, which is a really great thought. However, you will not really have any opportunity to refill your water. It will come in bottles already. So you will have bottled water available. Yes, you can pour it into your own water bottle if you want to, if you drink from your own bottle. That's totally cool. But there will be not any taps or anything available where you can refill your water bottle and kind of try and reduce waste. It's unfortunately, we're not there yet. Some venues have it, most of them don't. So bring your own water bottle if you want to. It's a little bit a question of luggage, and I'll get to that point here in a minute. Again, water will be provided in bottles, and you'll have that available most of the time. Okay. So that would be cholera. So not really necessary to get any cholera vaccination unless you stay in a rural area with no access to bottled water for an extended period of time. And that's typically not happening on the tours that we provide, or on the tours that I've been working on with my guests so far. What else? Oh yeah, food. What do I eat in Africa? Don't go on a diet before you go to Africa. It's not going to work. I tell you, the food is delicious. The food is really, really good. Most venues cook to Western standards. They provide 3-course dinners with salad, vegetables, meats, curries, all kinds of stuff. And often there's also some local food provided. So if you feel like you would like to taste the local food and some local dishes, that is often also provided in the camps and in the hotels and in the lodges, because people know that we're curious. That's why we're coming to Africa. We want to try and taste it. We want to try and see what it is about, and so on. And you will get that opportunity too. We always talk about organic food here, right? And we look at the labels. Most of the food in Africa is organic. They grow a lot of the food themselves, or they buy it from the market locally, where people grow the food in their own little farmstead or something like that. And most of it is grown without any pesticides. The animals are often raised without any antibiotics. You will taste some really, really fresh, organically grown, super, super tasty African food. And it is really, really yummy. Because most people go on a safari, you don't get really that much exercise. So again, don't go on a diet, because you will first of all miss out on the delicious foods and desserts and all that, and you don't really get the opportunity to work it off or walk it off again, unless you engage in one of the big activities that I talked about in the activity video module, which I forgot to mention in the beginning here. Okay, so don't worry about the food. It is prepared and washed and made to Western standards, so you don't really have to worry about any washing your vegetables or washing the fruit. Everything that's served to you in the camps or in the lodges and hotels has been prepared for our stomachs. If you want to buy any type of food on any type of market, run it by your guide first. Talk to them, because they will know how those particular vendors or this particular market is preparing the food, because some of them are okay to try. Others may not be. So don't just go, walk away and try some chicken on the side of the road. It will follow you probably all the way home. Don't do that. Talk to your guide first. And if in doubt, if he doesn't know the vendor and if he doesn't know, don't try it, because it may be uncomfortable for the rest of your tour and even coming home. So be prepared for that. Another issue sometimes is coming up are the lunch packs. When you go on safari and you decide to stay out in the bush all day, you will take a lunch pack. Some venues offer you like a buffet style lunch pack where you pick and choose what you put in your lunch pack. There's juice boxes, there are buns, there's chocolate, there's apples. Sometimes there's chicken, sometimes there's boiled eggs. Be aware that a lot of the food has been prepared maybe the early morning or the day before, and your car has a cool box or like a little fridge in the car. It's not ice cold. It's cooling your food, but it likely is not keeping it at refrigerator temperature, so 5 to 7 degrees. It will not. So make a good decision of what kind of food you choose and what you like, and how are you going to keep it in the car. If you kind of have a sensitive stomach and maybe you are sometimes, a victim of traveler's diarrhea, maybe take the foods that are safe, like bread, maybe some chocolate, maybe a vegetable or something like that you can eat during the day. You will get a hot lunch for dinner, so you're not going to starve. Maybe leave the chicken at the camp so you can avoid getting sick. For instance, people always say I have an ostrich stomach. I can eat rocks and I don't get sick. So I can eat the chicken. I have no problem. But I had to slowly try it and see if that's really the case. It's the case for me, but it may not be the case for you. So make a good decision. Try and listen to your body. Remember, what would you eat if you were here? And remember that your cool box in the vehicle may not be at 5 or 7 degrees. It may be warmer than that. So keep that in mind. Other than that, enjoy the food. It's like I said, it's fresh. It's mostly organic. It's delicious, and don't skimp out on it. It's not worth it. You can go on a diet when you get home. Luggage, and here we come with the water bottle. So if you go to Africa, to go to different parts of Africa, you may have to travel in a small aircraft. These small aircrafts restrict your luggage, often to 15 kilos. Some of these small airplane companies change their requirements now to 20 kilos, because a lot of people just have a hard time restricting their luggage to 15 kilos. But honestly, you don't need a lot to take along. We have what we call a rule of 3. So take 3 pieces of each, a shirt, shorts, or these zip-off pants, where you can zip off your the legs and make them into shorts. So those are pretty handy. So take 3 of each, 1 to wear, 1 to wash, and 1 to dry, I think it was. Yeah. So you can kind of circle or cycle your luggage around. Then you don't have to bring 14 sets of outfits if you go on a 14-day trip. You don't. Um, East Africa is, and especially Southern Africa, the climate is quite good for drying out your clothes. If you go in the January, February season to see the birthing of the wildebeest, for instance, you may have a lot of humidity and your clothes may not dry as quickly. So just keep that in mind. But you can wash all your clothes in pretty much all of the venues. Some do have washing machines. A lot of the venues, especially in the Serengeti, when you're out in the bush, and also in Botswana, when you're out in the bush, they often wash the clothes by hand and they let it dry in the sun. So be aware of that. We recommend to give your clothes in at a venue if you stay for 2 or more nights. So immediately when you get to your camp, or in the next couple hours or whatever, you sort out your clothes that you would want washed and you give it in for washing, and then they have a full day and an afternoon to get it done. They'll likely wash it the same evening, and then they have a full day to get it dried, and then you'll get it back the next day. That's really important, especially in East Africa, because it can sometimes take a long time for clothes to dry. And if it doesn't dry, they will still give it back to you, but it may be damp. And then you'll have to just take it out of your suitcase in your next venue again and let it dry in your next venue. Please consider using the laundry services in the area, because first of all, it lightens your load. You don't have to take as much, but it also provides a job for local people. There's somebody that's in the washing area that's washing the clothes. There's maybe another helper that's ironing some of your clothes or hanging it up to dry. So you are supporting the community if you use the laundry service in the venues, in the hotels, in the lodges, and you will give somebody a job, and you will, with that job, those people support a whole family. Usually it's 7 or 8 people behind them that they support with that one job. So it's always a good idea to use it. Some venues, and again, it depends on what kind of level you book. If you book, a mid-range or a higher mid-range, often in those venues, the laundry is included. In the very remote places, sometimes in the Serengeti, laundry will have to be paid for. And they do charge the laundry by pieces. So don't be surprised if there is a charge of $2 or $3 to get a pair of pants washed. And that's it sounds expensive, but if you look at it, a lot of these places, they have to bring in the water. They don't have a well, they don't have a water tap to just open and rely on the water to come out. So there is a lot of work involved to get all the supplies into the camp to offer that laundry service, and that's why they charge for it. So if you wash one pair of pants and you wash a couple blouses and maybe an undershirt or something like that, you may have to pay $15-20 for that. Remember, it's going to a good cause. You're supporting people with that. You're supporting the economy. You're supporting the community with that. I know it sounds expensive, but honestly, it's not really just washing that one piece of laundry. It's a lot of things that need to be done in order to be able to wash that piece of laundry. And please remember that when you see that price list, and they're asking you to pay $20 or $30 at the end of your stay because you had a basket full of laundry. Okay, so if you don't want to pay for that, that's fine. Go to the next venue and maybe look it up beforehand. Maybe the laundry will be included in that package. Many places in Uganda actually do include the laundry, but be prepared, you may get your washed pieces back damp. So just to prepare you for that. So that's about the luggage. Bring some binoculars. There will be one pair of binoculars for use in the safari vehicle. If you're more than one person, it's always good to have your own binoculars. First of all, you know how they work, and you don't have to, figure it out and find the dials to make the picture sharp for your eyeballs. And it's just quicker to use your own binoculars, and you're used to them. And wildlife is moving around. So if the quicker you are with your binoculars, the more chances, or the better chances you have to actually see it and be able to watch it and stay with it with your own pair. Do you need really a huge big lens for photography? If you are some kind of a professional photographer, or you just really like those close-up shots, it's worthwhile to take one. I have seen people with big lenses on the truck. I question if that's really necessary. You'll see a lot of wildlife quite close to the car. So I think it really depends on what type of photography you're going to do. And we can probably discuss that in your individual case, and run some examples by each other, and then I can give my opinion. Yeah, so that's probably a question that can be answered on an individual basis. Yeah, some people were asking about the guidebook. So when you book with Lion Dog African Safaris, you will receive the African Adventure guidebook. It is a PDF document that was developed at the very beginning of Lion Dog African Safaris, probably about 10 years ago. And it has since then changed. It has grown. We're now probably at about 40 pages. It's information that is often asked for, and it's information that some individual travelers are bringing back. Maybe you will find a situation that has not been described in the guidebook that I will add into the guidebook. So it's a living document. That's what I want to say. It's a living document, and I add a lot of information from travelers that come back, from me coming back, things that I have experienced, maybe some technical things that are added on. For instance, I just recently added on an app, so you can actually download an app for currency conversion. So if you you want to convert the pricing of a drink, for instance, in Tanzania to what it would cost in North America, that app is quite handy because you can highlight 5 or 6 of your favorite or of your most used currencies, and you type it in, and it will show you immediately what the currency would be here in our cost. So it's quite handy, and I added it on in the guidebook. So it's a living document with things added on as they appear. You will receive this guidebook when you book with Lion Dog African Safaris. Um, and people sometimes ask, why can't I get it earlier than that? It is intellectual property that belongs to Lion Dog. And I am more than happy to tell you all about Africa, and I'm happy to give you the guidebook. But I also have to look after the company and after myself, and make a living of it. So I don't give my advice away for free, not all of it away for free. I give quite a bit of advice away for free already. So that is part of your tour package, and it's privy to you when you book with us. Okay, here's a question. Marian asks, she had her yellow fever vaccination. It says it expires in 2018. You do not need another certificate, even though it shows there that it expired in 2018. The rules changed in 2018 or early in 2019. I think it was in 2018. And mine also says it expires, but people know, and the border officials know, that the yellow fever does not expire anymore. You do not need a new vaccination certificate. If you do know where you went to go and get it, you may ask them, and they may give you a new one where it says it doesn't expire, but you don't need it. You don't need it. So if you have this one, you can use that one comfortably, and I promise you it will be accepted at the border. Absolutely, it will be accepted. Okay, I hope that answers that. There was another, I have a little list here with questions that have been asked before. We have that. So a person asked me before about additional activities. Because we talked a little bit about it in the game safari component, there's some activities that can be done, So which activities should I book beforehand, and which activities can I just do when I'm on my way? So some of the activities you can just decide on your way if you want to do it or not. And I will mention those activities in your tour proposal. And I will also tell you that you can decide, do you want to do it or not? And in your program, when you get your tour program, there will be a timeline on each activity. So because sometimes we need to get a permit for you beforehand, especially in Tanzania. If you want to go, for instance, and you want to visit the Alderpai Gorge, you will need your permit about 2 days ahead of time. It has to be paid in Arusha. So the supplier will have to physically go to the bank and pay for your permit in Arusha beforehand. And then they will send it to your guide, who will then give you the permit. And you show that at the gate to get into Alderpai Gorge. You cannot go to Alderpai Gorge or other activities for that matter and say, I want to do it now, and then they let you in. There has been a lot of changes regarding that to avoid corruption, because they want the funds to go to the government, who maintains the facilities, who maintains the museums, who maintain the conservation of the wildlife, etc. And they need to have those funds go to them and not to somebody sitting at the gate cashing in the money. So you cannot pay for a lot of those activities at the gate, but you can decide about 2 or 3 days ahead of time if you want to do it or not. And then it can be paid through your guide. So you talk to your guide, they let the supplier know, and they get your permit for you ahead of time, and then you can comfortably go in and see Alderpai Gorge or other of those activities. There are some activities that you would want to book ahead of time because they have a tendency to book up, like for instance a hot air balloon flight over the Serengeti, or a balloon ride over Okavango Delta or the Tarangire Park or so. Those activities have a tendency to book up, and it would be good to book them ahead of time. Again, if you are interested in any of those activities, I will recommend what we should do, and I will tell you if you can wait until you're on your tour. And I will also tell you if you shouldn't wait until you go on your tour. In Zambia, for instance, at Victoria Falls, there is plenty of activities that you can engage in. Many of them are available for booking locally. Some of them book up way ahead of time. Say, for instance, a visitation of the Elephant Cafe. You would want to book that ahead of time. Fishing you can book when you're there. A helicopter ride or a micro ride over the falls you should book ahead of time because they're booking up. So those things I will recommend when we're building your tour. The activities that I mentioned in the extra module, like for instance climbing Kilimanjaro, visiting the Hazabi and Datoga, doing the cultural visit with the Maasai at West Kilimanjaro, those are activities that we should book ahead of time, because they also include overnight stays. They include more than just showing up and doing it. Those activities absolutely need to be booked ahead of time, but some of them you have the opportunity to just book them while you're on tour, and you can say, oh, I would like to do this and that, and then you can do it. The best source for those spontaneous activities is always your guide. So always talk to your guide if you want to do something like that. I will suggest some of those activities in your program or in your proposal, and I will give you a timeline to when you should decide if you want to do it or not. Okay, those are the activities. What else? Oh yeah, what people asking often, what if I don't want to do any of the activities? How am I going to spend my day? A lot of the times you will spend your day on safari, because many of these activities, like for instance Alderpai Gorge or the hot air balloon, are integrated into your safari. So if you don't want to do them, you will have more time on safari. The hot air balloon, for instance, is scheduled for early in the morning, so you'd get up often at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to do your hot air balloon, and then you're done with that activity around 11. So if you don't do the hot air balloon, you will spend the morning either at leisure at the camp if you want to sleep in, or you'll be out in the bush for safari. That kind of integrates into your day on safari. Because we're doing our safaris on a private guided tour, you can do your day on safari however way you want to. So you can be up early and you can be on the truck at 6 o'clock to see the sunrise and see the activity in the morning. Or if you have had 4 or 5 of those early mornings and you feel a little tired, because safari can become exhausting, you can say, I want to sleep in today. I want to sleep until 8, have a leisurely breakfast, maybe be on my way to my next venue and, have a leisure day. I don't want to, get up at the crack of dawn and be on the truck and see another 1,000 zebras today. So you can decide that every day with the help of your guide, or you tell him the day before how you feel. Maybe you are feeling already tired and he can make suggestions. So your closest ally on your safari is your safari guide. And again, it's a private safari. So you have your guide to yourself. Talk to him, use him, ask them questions, talk about politics, talk about religion, talk about family, talk about the wildlife, talk about the ecosystem, everything. He is there for you, for your questions. Sometimes when the roads get a little bit more rocky or a little bit more bumpy, they will have to pay more attention to their surroundings and the roads and all that kind of thing. So he will be a little bit more quiet, but he'll let you know that. And then you can, if you have questions, and he will say, oh, hang on, I have to navigate through this or something like that, and then he will answer your question afterwards when the roads are better again. Okay, so these are the questions that I've received beforehand. Oh, it's been 45 minutes. Wow. Time really flies when you have something to say, I guess. Facebook will record this live stream and it will come up on Lion Dog African Safari's Facebook page. And you can access it and you can go back and you can ask me questions or send me questions or comment on the video. I will go back to it every now and again to see if there's anything else that came up. Again, I'm here, I'm available. I'm not going anywhere right now. I'm waiting to go, but we're not quite there yet. So send me your questions, tune in, send me an email. If you have anything else that you would like me to cover, or you would like me to make a video or something like that, let me know. And I can't wait to start planning your trips. Now is a really good time. I have actually quite a few guests that want to go next year, and we're planning a safari, and we're taking our time. We're looking at the days in particular, and we're taking maybe a little bit more time than we used to, and which is really good, because that prepares you so much better for your tour, and you know what to expect, and you will be prepared for your trip. So I wish you a good weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers out there. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for being a client of Lion Dog African Safaris. Thank you for asking questions. And I hope I'll talk to you soon again. Okay? Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.